Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your day with us. We are going to start this morning with the latest round of severe weather making its way across the country. Out west, wildfires are burning in several states like Utah and New Mexico, filling the skies with this thick smoke and making it hard to see.
In South Florida, the smoke from several brush fires there created some air quality issues for World Cup fans who were at the game between Scotland and Brazil last night. And in Texas, the heat is the state's biggest concern. Temperatures topped 105 degrees yesterday, making it dangerous for anyone who was outside too long. NBC News meteorologist Angie Lastman will have your forecast. But first, NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in Dallas with the latest. Ryan, good morning. So what parts of the country are expecting the highest temps today?
Well, Joe, good morning. The sun is just coming up over Dallas, and we can already tell it's going to be a very long day here. But we are watching a massive swath to the west of us that is just burning up today. You see this band from southeastern California all the way to Lubbock. The whole Southwest is just sweltering. We're seeing temperatures in southeast California of 110, the Phoenix area 111. The National Weather Service issuing an extreme heat warning, saying parts of Arizona could see temperatures up to 112 today. Joe, Savannah, there's a tendency to say this is just seasonal weather. The heat comes every year. And that is true. But you also have to remember that heat is the most dangerous kind of weather that any American sees on any given day. It kills more people every year than any other type of extreme weather. So on days like this, it is important to follow the safety guidelines, remembering that air conditioning is not a luxury on a day like this. It is a necessity. And there are cities that making sure that people who don't have it do today.
Ryan, let's talk also about the wildfires that are raging in Florida, out west. What are some of the biggest concerns with trying to get them under control right now?
So two different situations there. You have the brush fires right outside the major metro area of Miami in Florida, and then the western wildfires in the mountainous areas in Utah, especially getting battered by wildfires. There, the concern is that the forecast for the rest of the week doesn't look good when it comes to wildfire fuel. Somewhat counterintuitively in Utah in the western area, there's a cold front coming in, which means there could be what they call dry lightning at the leading edge of that storm, which could spark more fire without any rain to comfort that. It also brings high winds that could make this matter only worse. And then in Florida, you have so many people visiting for the World Cup and now dealing with air quality alerts as that haze coming in from right on the edge of that major metro area comes in and makes breathing difficult for so many more. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Ryan Chandler bracing for another hot one in Dallas. Ryan, thank you.
For more on the heat, let's take a closer look at your Morning News Now weather.
Angie Lastman is here with the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Let's start with that heat that Ryan was just mentioning. And boy, no surprise that we've got some of these heat alerts still up across some of those same regions for the Southwest. Ryan made a good point. This is pretty kind of typical temperatures for a lot of folks. But again, still going to be oppressive heat that they're having to combat as the day goes on. We're running about 5 to 10 degrees above normal for some folks. That puts us into the triple-digit mark for places like El Paso. Phoenix is expected to hit 110 this afternoon, 100 degrees in Amarillo, and more humid conditions across parts of Texas and points towards the Gulf Coast. 93 degrees in New Orleans today, but feeling like 104. Houston tops out at 93, but feels like 101. So overall, really another uncomfortable and kind of dangerous day across these same regions. And that goes for tomorrow, too. Notice, still dealing with that heat, still some of those folks dealing with the humidity as well. 109 in Phoenix tomorrow afternoon. We've got the high 90s in Dallas, but feeling like the triple digits across Texas. Even Memphis feels like 96 degrees tomorrow. We'll see that widespread heat kind of take shape as we get closer into the weekend and beyond. And this does include parts of the east where you'll notice temperatures are surging into those upper 90s in places like South Carolina through the weekend and into the work week. Even Cincinnati, you go from the low 80s on Saturday, much more comfortable, to the mid 90s by Monday. We head into the new work week in New York City into the mid 90s. And that's going to really kind of set the stage for what we see for the extended period, even as we get potentially into that next holiday kind of weekend that is upcoming with the 4th of July. Meanwhile, across the middle of the country, more of kind of the same. Really, we've got the flood alerts and the severe threat potential. Here's those flood alerts, including 15 million people across much of parts of the plains and stretching into the Midwest. And we've got that chance for some of those stronger storms to develop across those same regions. Guys, that that will happen as we get into the afternoon hour. So much to keep an eye on here when it comes to the weather today.
We've been saying the 90s are back for a long time. That includes the temperatures. The 90s are back.
Exactly.
No
Good
kidding.
point.
Also, yay, Angie, I'm so glad you're here. I know
So
you've been
glad
back
to see
with
you.
us. All right, let's go now to the Middle East, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio is wrapping up his tour of Gulf Arab states. Earlier this morning, Rubio met with officials and Gulf foreign ministers in Bahrain as part of an effort to get their backing for that interim deal agreed to by the U.S. and Iran to end the war.
Both countries continue to negotiate, hoping to reach that final peace deal, but outstanding issues remain, like when nuclear inspections will begin. Also, Israel's ongoing occupation of southern Lebanon casts a major shadow over the talks. Despite all that, Rubio tried to reassure Gulf allies that any deal would take their interests into account.
While we want a deal, we don't want a deal at any price. We want a deal that's good, we want a deal that's real, we want a deal that's verifiable, and we want a deal that's adhered to. The message that I come with is that we want to ensure that in any decisions that are made throughout this negotiating process, the interests of our partners and our allies in the region are always taken into account.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us with more from Tel Aviv. Matt, good morning. So tell us more about what we heard from Rubio and if it's clear if this message alleviates some of the concerns of Gulf allies.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been seeing is a tough sell by Marco Rubio. He's visiting some of the main countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, who were pelted by the Iranians in a war that they didn't start. So that's one of the things that has left them feeling very much left out, not just of the war, but of those negotiations to resolve it. And they've had no input in any of that. And yet they've been reaping Iran's punishment. So, you know, a lot of these concerns that they have are the concerns that are shared by Israel, also left out of those negotiations. That memorandum of understanding doesn't include almost any language that talks about Iranian support for proxy groups throughout the region, like Hezbollah and Lebanon. That has been a very, very big issue for the Israelis. It also doesn't mention anything about Iran's ballistic missile capability. It's conventional weapons that the Iranians use to help countries, including those Gulf countries, and especially here in Israel, all throughout that fighting earlier this year. So these are issues that the Gulf countries share with Israel and that Mr. Rubio is going to have a really tough time selling as these negotiations seem to proceed without any input outside of the American side and the Iranian side.
Matt, you mentioned Hezbollah, and that brings us to one of Iran's biggest sticking points, and that is Israel's war in Lebanon, the IDF's occupation of the southern part of that country. It's also obviously a major issue for the Lebanese government in its ongoing talks with Israeli officials. Those are happening in Washington. But yesterday, Israel's defense minister said they would not withdraw their troops, even if the U.S. demanded it. Walk us through how all of this is impacting the talks.
Yeah, and this is the umpteenth time that we've heard the Israeli leaders saying that they are not going to be withdrawing from Lebanon. And the reason why is because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF have been coming in for scorching criticism from the Israeli media and from Israeli politicians who are saying that Netanyahu isn't doing enough to stand up to President Trump and demand that Israeli troops continue their fight against Hezbollah in Lebanon. They say that the prime minister doesn't do enough. Now, this is a big issue, obviously, for the Americans, because even though, as I mentioned before, the Israelis had almost no input into these negotiations that arrived at that memorandum of understanding, they are in a very, very strong position to break the entire ceasefire down simply by continuing to attack Hezbollah. Now, we read in the Israeli Hebrew language media yesterday saying that there were plans that were being hatched and were being acted on to withdraw from very specific, certain small parts of Lebanon where the Israelis have been deployed now for months. We've heard that denied strenuously by officials, but this is a question going forward that is clearly going to be massaged a bit. The United States has been putting enormous amounts of pressure on Israel to do something about their presence in Lebanon. The Iranians are putting a lot of pressure on the Americans in these negotiations to make sure that not only is the fighting finished, but that eventually Israel withdraws completely, something the Israelis said is a non-starter.
Matt, another point of contention here, it's this mixed messaging that we're getting over nuclear inspections in Iran. It seems now like the dispute is more over when those inspections would happen rather than if they are going to happen. But walk us through the latest.
Yeah, I mean, a really confusing set of conversations that were going on. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, President Trump himself saying that Iran had allowed in nuclear inspectors now until infinity, the president said. The Iranians came out right after that and said, absolutely not. We have not agreed to allow in IAEA inspectors. That's UN-affiliated nuclear inspectors who have been going to Iran now for generations. Now, there is another issue here. The Iranians had not ever really kicked out the IAEA. It was just that after the U.S. and Iran bombed Iranian nuclear facilities back last June, they said that the IAEA couldn't visit nuclear enrichment facilities. They were still allowed, technically, to visit facilities that didn't enrich uranium, like the Bushehr nuclear power plant. Now, the IAEA has come out and said, rather confusingly after all these other comments, that the IAEA inspections would definitely continue, but there was no specifics about when or which places they would be allowed to visit. So this question, like so many other questions surrounding this memorandum and surrounding these negotiations, looks like it's not going to be answered anytime soon. Guys?
All right, Matt Bradley from Tel Aviv for us. Thank you.
In Washington, Senate Republicans now appear to be backing President Trump on Iran after some voted to rebuke his handling of the war just a day earlier.
Last night, the chamber rejected a second war powers resolution, voting 50 to 47 against the bill to curb the president's military authority. A couple of Republicans changed their votes following a heated meeting with the president at the White House.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach. Gary, good to have you with us. So walk us through this contentious lunch meeting that took place yesterday, why some Republicans in the end ended up changing their votes.
Yeah, this meeting was supposed to be an opportunity for the senators to present a bunch of pieces of legislation to President Trump and kind of get the reality on the situation there. But what it turned into, apparently, is a shouting match between President Trump and Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana over the war with Iran. Cassidy saying after he left that Trump called him a lunatic and that he was going to vote yes on any war powers resolution until he got more information and the answers he was looking for on the war with Iran. Just hours later, he found himself in the White House Situation Room with the Vice President of the United States and Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East, getting the briefing he asked for, getting that information. And then just last night, he ended up voting no on that war powers resolution. Of course, this resolution has no teeth. It's symbolic in nature. It doesn't really mean anything. But certainly this was important to the White House and important to Bill Cassidy.
So, Gary, let's talk more about this. You know, what's holding this up, according to the president, this battle to overhaul elections. It is, of course, as we get closer to the midterms, some Democrats are accusing the Trump administration of attempting to improperly insert itself into election regulation, which is the power of the Constitution. It grants only to the states and Congress. But this comes after the Postmaster General said something about mail-in ballots at a Senate hearing yesterday. Let's listen to that.
If a state refuses to turn their absentee voter list over to the federal government, will the Postal Service still mail their ballots under this proposal rule?
Under our proposed regulation, no.
You're telling these states either give the federal government this information, trust the federal government, trust the Trump administration. We'll take good care of these. And if you don't do it, you can't mail absentee ballots. You're going to make a decision that people cannot vote by mail. That's unacceptable.
Gary, where do things stand when it comes to these changes the Trump administration is trying to make?
Yeah, so to be clear, this is a proposed rule right now. It is not a final rule. It is not yet in effect. It's just at a point of being discussed in Congress and in the public comment period right now. But this is an opportunity where the Postmaster General wants to put in place what is being asked for by President Trump's executive order that has been knocked down by judges left and right. 3 different judges have said that he can't do this, but they're trying to go about a final rule, which is sort of a different way of doing this. And what they're trying to do is stop mail-in ballots from being sent to voters if that state has not sent the voter roll to the federal government. Now, judges across the country, 9 different judges, have stopped that from happening. So all of this is going to be held up in courts for the next few months ahead of the midterms, guys.
Gary, on top of all this, today senators were supposed to begin marking up some of the annual appropriations bills. Those are necessary to basically keep the government running down the road. They left town, though, last night after those spending talks stalled. Any concerns we could be heading toward another potential government shutdown in just a couple months?
Those conversations certainly are starting, and it's because of how radioactive this election security bill is. They're trying to attach it to things like an immigration legislation. They're trying to attach it to things like spending bills, and none of that is working. The senators realize they don't have the votes to get this passed. They're trying to explain this to the White House, but now we're seeing 25 members of the House saying they will not vote for anything else until this election security bill gets passed. So there's a real hang-up here in Congress that Mike Johnson, that the Senate Majority Leader John Thune are going to have to figure out to move any legislation over the next few months, guys.
All right, Gary Grumbach, thank you so much. Jury deliberations are set to resume today in the federal trial of a man who is accused of starting last year's deadly Palisades wildfire in Southern California.
30-year-old Jonathan Rendernecht is accused of starting a fire New Year's Day during the first hours of 2025 that later turned into one of the worst disasters in Los Angeles history. He's pleaded not guilty and could face up to 45 years in prison if convicted. 12 people were killed and nearly 7,000 structures were destroyed.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now with more on this trial. Danny, good to have you with us. So Rendernecht faces, 3 federal charges related to the wildfires. Prosecutors say he was distraught over a failed relationship and, quote, maliciously started the fire after his shift as an Uber driver. Walk us through some of the arguments we've seen made in court here.
This is the ultimate circumstantial evidence case. That doesn't mean it's a weak case, but you're not going to have any direct evidence. All you're going to have is evidence that this defendant was in a forested wildlife area and then a fire started. You have some inconsistent statements that he gave to investigators about his location. You have access, at least they say access, to a lighter, but then again, lighters are pretty common items. Then on the defense side, there were witnesses who testified. They saw fireworks. They saw kids running from the scene. So you really have a case here that there might be some reasonable doubt. So this really could go either way.
You just mentioned some of these other details that I think the defense is going to point to, like the fireworks. They're also saying that the Rendernecht is essentially the scapegoat for the failure of the fire department in Los Angeles. Do all these elements help the defense? How do you see them using these pieces?
Yes, this is the key to reasonable doubt, because the burdens are not the same. This is not a he said, she said. The government, the prosecution, has the burden to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. And so far, they've got things like motive, and that's helpful, but it's not an essential element. They never will have either an admission or video evidence or something saying that we saw him start that fire. The best they're going to be able to do is inconsistent statements and that he was present in the area. And that is an interesting thing. Sometimes circumstantial evidence is very powerful evidence, but sometimes it leaves open a crack for reasonable doubt. And that's all the defense needs to argue. And they were able to find witnesses who said, we saw fireworks. We saw kids running from the scene. That kind of stuff there could lead to reasonable doubt. But on the other hand, you have such a catastrophic fire. I can't help but wonder if jurors are thinking we've got to find someone to blame.
Federal trial, so no cameras in court here. But we know we're getting lots of reports of what's happening. What stood out most? What have been some of the most interesting moments so far?
To me, this is a classic case of the most damaging evidence to the defendant isn't what the prosecution came up with. It's what he told investigators. He spoke to investigators afterwards, apparently said he was at the beginning of the trail, geolocation data, which, by the way, is not perfect. You know, when you use your cell phone to either triangulate or somehow determine where you are at a particular time, it showed him 30 feet from the fire. That is really, really bad. But it's not so bad that he was close to it. That's bad. But in addition, if he was lying about being close to it, that may be, if he's convicted, what gets him convicted.
Danny Savalos, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Well, at least 164 people are dead and more than 900 others are injured after 2 powerful earthquakes hit near the coast of Venezuela overnight. Both registered over a 7 magnitude.
The quakes are among the strongest to strike that country in more than a century. They occurred less than a minute apart from each other. This morning, Venezuela's acting president has declared a state of emergency as rescue workers search for survivors.
Ana Vanessa Herrero is a correspondent based in Caracas working for NBC News. She joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Anna. So first, just tell us your experience. I mean, what did these quakes feel like? Did you take shelter?
Yes, immediately after.
Unfortunately, it looks like we're having some trouble with her internet. Oh, there we go.
Oh, Yes. Well, this is what's happening right now, right? It's the signals, the lines are very affected by the situation. So yes, immediately after we knew what was happening, my family and I, we took shelter. We didn't really know the extent of the devastation at that moment, but immediately when it stopped and the connection started working again, we learned through different videos on social media that the situation was absolute devastation, not only in Caracas, but in different areas surrounding Caracas. And right now on the ground, what you can feel is absolute despair. People just standing in front of the buildings like the ones that's behind me that fell yesterday, and just mourning and weeping over the loss of their loved ones and wishing and praying for the people who are still under the rest of the buildings.
Anna, we're glad that you and your family are okay. Obviously, behind you there, we can see some of the damage. But can you give us a sense of just how widespread the damage is there?
I don't think anyone really understands and knows the extent of the situation, but I have seen running around Caracas this morning how difficult things are and how people are still shaking by the situation and how they are just waiting and hoping that the international community could help. Because let me tell you something, right now, first responders, the firemen and the rest are still looking for survivors, even as we speak, but they don't have the tools or the machinery to do so. And this is a problem. One of them even telling me that Venezuela was not ready for this because they have been forgotten by the Venezuelan government. They don't have the machinery or the tools to continue their work. So a lot of people here are trying to help, but of course it's complicated. The situation is still very, very dangerous for someone who's not trained into doing this.
Anna, tell us more about rescue efforts this morning. What do they look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I was telling you, it's a slow process because there's not enough people and there is not enough machinery to do so. Again, I have been talking to several of them on the ground, and they tell me that this problem has been something that they foresaw even before this happening. They don't have what it takes to face a problem of this magnitude, and we don't really know the extent of it. In La Guaira, in the coastal area of Venezuela, apparently
Anna Vanessa Herrero, again, as she mentioned, just tough with the communication there, of course, in the devastating wake of this disaster. Anna, thank you very much for joining us.
Nearly a year after the flood that devastated Texas Hill Country, Camp Mystic has filed for bankruptcy. 27 young girls and counselors were killed when floodwaters swept through the summer camp. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky explains what this filing could mean for families still seeking answers.
Amid tragedy, lawsuits, and no license to operate, the 100-year-old Camp Mystic filing for bankruptcy. The filing by the all-girls camp raising questions over its future and litigation against it, following the deaths of its owner, 25 campers, and 2 counselors last July when the Guadalupe River surged nearly 40 feet out of its banks. Documents obtained by NBC News show Mystic claiming total debt exceeds $10 million. The filing pausing all wrongful death and negligence suits scheduled for next year. Camp owners admitting in April they wish they had evacuated sooner.
We tried our hardest that night, and it wasn't enough to save your daughters.
The fight for accountability, led by Heavens 27, formed by the families who lost their daughters.
As a mother or a parent, really, there's a desperate need to know, what did you go through? Were you alone? Were you with someone? Were you afraid? Was it fast?
8 of those mothers sitting down with our own Lester Holt.
Could this tragedy have been averted?
100%. Yes. Our girls should be here. With the time frame, there's time for them all, the whole camp, to evacuate safely.
Camp Mystic's attorney telling Lester staff did follow their policy of sheltering in place, but suffered without a better flood detection system.
Every time it rains, there's a risk of flash floods, but that's not the same thing as what happened here. This was a 1,000-year flood that nobody's ever seen before.
An attorney representing multiple Mystic victims tells me that bankruptcy will not stop people from being held accountable, adding these innocent young girls deserve justice.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.